right, now we get to talk about Classic versus Data Prep Studio. Okay, all right. There's a lot of text here. There's a lot here on this slide, and so I will walk you through this, and I think a lot of this will make sense. All right. Now, what is it? Okay, so we have the Classic application, and the Classic application has been around since 1990. Okay, it's I like to joke and call it the millennial, right? It's over 30 years old, all right? And the application is a report-centric application. It was built and designed for working with reports. So it has and still has a lot of features that were designed for working with reports. Now, the Data Prep Studio, on the other hand, is what you call a table-centric application. Everything in that application is designed to about working with tables. Um, so when you bring in a report, you bring in a spreadsheet, you bring in a database source. In the Data Prep Studio, everything gets normalized to be a table. And Data Prep Studio was created in 2015, and approximately 10 years after, so approximately 10 years after it was launched, by the time we get to 2025, is where we get to feature parity with Classic. Okay, I'm going to talk more about that in the next slide or two. Okay, now will Classic be discontinued? No, the Classic application will continue to be supported, but no new features are being developed in Classic. All new features and product roadmap development are all in Data Prep Studio. Okay. Um, Availability with licensing. All Monarch licenses come with both Classic and Data Prep Studio. We look at the file types. In Classic, you have models.dmod. There are older versions that were just .mod and .xmod, and then project files, which are the .dprj project files. In Data Prep Studio, there are actually four file types. You have the .dpwx, which is the workspace. You have the .dpcl, which is the change lists. The .dpmc, which is for macros. I think those were introduced in 2023. Well, I'm not sure when. And then the .dpsv, which is a data source file type. All right, now moving on to migration and compatibility. Classic models and projects can be imported into Data Prep Studio, and all of the work that was done in a classic model will be transferred into Data Prep Studio. What happens is your classic model will be retained, it'll be as is, but a copy of all that work is moved into Data Prep Studio. Don't worry, all this stuff's going to make sense because as we go through the course, we're going to go slow it down and go through a hands-on um, exercise together, okay? Um, okay, so what that will do is you'll have a separate classic model, and then you'll have your workspace where you've imported. A Monarch workspace, so if you start with building something in Data Prep Studio, you cannot transfer that to Classic. Okay, you can't go backwards, so to speak. Um, Now you could open a workspace in Monarch Classic, but it'll only be opened as a table data source. Okay. Now, which do I use? Now, what should I use? Should I start with? Well, the short answer is, it, I guess the short answer would be depends, but you want to start with data prep. All new users all new use cases should be solved for in Data Prep Studio, given its feature parity with Classic and its more comprehensive list of data preparation functionality. It is the go forward Monarch application. Now, that said, you want to consider Classic if, okay, okay, because there are some benefits, right? You want to consider classic if you are interested or have the Monarch server application, okay? That is because a classic model, okay, the file types, and that's why the file types comes into play here. The file types for a classic model has some different unique capabilities that render in the server that are available in server. And that is across the three server components: Automator, Report Mining Server, and Report Warehouse. Another reason is maintaining legacy models. There are some customers who have thousands and thousands of Monarch Classic models, okay? Now, even though you could migrate every single one of them theoretically to Data Prep Studio, how realistic is it to be able to want to do that? Um, Especially if a lot of those classic models are being used in a lot of processes, okay? And so you want to be able to support that. You want to be able to support all those different classic models, and then you could strategically pick and choose which of those makes sense to move to Data Prep Studio. But you being able to understand classic so you can support those classic models is really important. Another reason could be, you know, a governance perspective, or data cataloging. There are some benefits to having a library of templates or classic models, if you want to just document them for cataloging purposes, but they are also great in terms of having a list of accelerators. Um, okay, all right, so let's move on here. Now, who should use it or who should learn? Um, if it's classic, we're talking about classic, I would say power users in the server or your server admins, it's helpful for them to learn the fundamentals of Classic, especially if they're supporting visual processes and visual processes that rely on Classic models. Or there are still customers that use the standard process and being able to move a standard process to a visual process, it helps understanding the fundamentals of Classic. And then there might be, or there are some people who want to become experts, right? If you're going to be an expert in Monarch, you want to understand Classic and because it will give you a good foundational model understanding of how things are done in Monarch. And then when it comes to Data Prep Studio, anyone and everyone should learn Data Prep Studio, right? So Classic is more optional, so to speak, and Data Prep Studio is like the required standard. Just go to Data Prep Studio. Now, why should I move? Why should someone move from Data Prep Studio to Classic? Um, at the beginning of this course, I made maybe not a joke, but a comment that just basically said because Data Prep Studio is better. um, but the it's easier. Data Prep Studio is easier, a little more auditable. Well, maybe not. Data Studios, sorry, Classics did have an audit list, change list as well. Data Studio has a more visual, maybe I should update this to say a little more of a visual interface. It gives you repeatable data prep, and it can be learned by any business professional. It's a little easier to learn. Furthermore, one workspace replaces a classic model and project files. All right, so I mean, and then so many other benefits. The ability to work with multiple Monarch models in one workspace. Point and click, easy data preparation, splitting file columns, converting data types. A more comprehensive list of transformation capabilities, pivots, unpivots, flagging duplicates, transposing your data. Um, a more comprehensive list of combine operations, 9 types of joins, the ability to do unions and appends, and my screen is cutting off here, but you have extensive list of exporting capabilities in Data Prep Studio as well. Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to stop here in this video. And in the next video, what we'll do is we're going to talk about the Monarch desktop timeline. Like, how did we go from classic to where we are now with Data Prep Studio? All right.